Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where we take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today we're taking a look at Knights of Valour 2, released and developed by IGS on the PGM platform, or PolyGame Master, which interestingly enough is basically almost a Neo Geo MVS or AES, except it's a completely different platform. It shares a ton of chips across both boards, and visually it looks like SNK could have developed this game, but it was not made by them. It was made by a Taiwanese company. It is a beat 'em up, and it is a quite good one at that. And the Knights of Valour series is quite long because the PGM went through multiple revisions, and they've been releasing these games all the way up through the late 2000s. But as you'll see as the intro starts, this looks exactly like something SNK would have developed. The visuals look very similar, what the hardware can put up graphic-wise looks really similar, and the art style and visuals, this kind of reminds me of something that SNK would have made for the MVS, something like The Last Blade if it was converted to a beat-em-up. It would look, I think, really similar. But as far as how it plays is concerned, it's a super competent, really fun beat-em-up, and basically this is taking from Chinese history and kind of retelling a story in a beat-em-up format. Granted, I am not Chinese, and I do not know a lot of their history, so it's all in, a different language, so I really can't translate a lot of the story over, but that is the basis of what's going on, is that it is using Chinese history in video game format, which is not something you get that much outside of games like this. But the PGM platform is quite interesting because it had a ton of games for it, and it is still quite cheap to buy and collect for. You can get a PGM board in this game for a couple $100s if you're lucky and you're looking on the right day. It is not a giant investment. But because this platform wasn't really popular in North America whatsoever, it's something that a lot of people really haven't heard of, because pretty much any video game fan is going to hear about SNK and Neo Geo. And if you're watching this channel, you know about them. I would assume you know about PGM, but maybe you don't, and that's why this is so much fun to show you guys these unported arcade games, because sometimes we're talking about games from Sega or Namco or Capcom, companies everyone's heard of, and then sometimes like today, we're talking about a game like Knights of Valour 2, which were released by IGS, a Taiwanese company, and maybe you just have never heard of them. But I really love the game. It is quite long. I will say that a playthrough is going to take you almost an hour, and it kind of has the same feel and vibe to some of the Dungeons & Dragons games on the CPS2, Tower of Doom and Knights of Vistara, or Shadow of Vistara. I said Knights because I'm talking about it. It has that same sort of vibe, and it has light RPG elements. Your characters can level up, and you can get different attacks and more powerful attacks you can activate through a sub-menu. So it really does feel like maybe they were copying that CPS2 formula a little bit when they made this game, but it feels completely different in its gameplay, and of course it's not in the D&D universe, so it really isn't that similar. And you'll see here that we are first using a character who has what I would call a pike or long blade on a stick. There's probably a very unique Chinese variant name to describe that, but he's kind of going to be your distance character. And I am going to switch characters up shortly because I do kind of like more of the tank or barbarian character that can dish out a little bit more damage and moves a little bit slower. But you have 4 characters to choose from, so whatever your play style is, you're going to find somebody that works for you. And that's what I do like about the game, is that it does have enough diversity in the characters you choose. And you'll see here, there's dynamite on the ground, and we've now switched that character over to somebody a little bit different, and I don't know what his name is because it is in Chinese, and I do not read that. But he's going to be your basic like warrior character, like if you're playing Golden Axe and you pick the warrior, a very similar type of character. And I do love that animation as you beat the boss. It feels like something that would come from a special move out of an arcade fighting game. So visually, like I said, this feels like playing a lost SNK game on the Neo Geo that you never knew existed, except it's on a platform that came from Taiwan. And like I said, a lot of the chips between the two platforms are identical, so it's not really surprising that it kind of looks, feels, and runs like a Neo Geo, because it uses that Motorola 68000 processor, and that was something that was in a lot of systems, including the MVS and AES. And you'll see here as I pull that sub-menu up, we have a V3, it's like the third most powerful special attack you can use, and you need to regenerate those as you play through because you only have so many of them. Right now we have 2. But those are definitely going to come in important when you have a lot of enemies on screen at once, or when you're battling a boss and he's giving you a little trouble, you need to take a little bit of a break, push him back. those special moves are going to come in very handy. So there is some resource management and item management going on throughout the game. It is quite light because it is an arcade game, but it's deeper than something like Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, where you're really just picking up a weapon, expending its ammo or usage, and then dropping it when it's done. So I do like that it's a light RPG beat 'em up, and I do love those D&D games, so having something similar to it is definitely something that I really appreciate. What I'm going to do now, though, is let you watch this next area. You get to pick if you want to go up or down, A or B, so it does have branching paths. But listen to the soundtrack. It's really great. Hear the sound effects, and I'll come back in about a minute and talk a little bit more about Knights of Valour 2. But enjoy. So now we've beaten the boss and we are on to the next stage, and I do like that it's now winter, and you get all these peasants running away from the battle, and you get these casual javelinas just strolling through like there's not a fight going on around them. But I like all the visual styling of the game. That path there recedes into the background, and it really gives it some depth. It doesn't feel like a flat image. You have that little hut in the background, and there's a little bit of parallax scrolling to give that effect of that depth. But I think that IGS does an amazing job with graphics. I think they're on par with SNK in some of their best efforts. I do like those goose there that are just trotting by like there's nothing going on. But it is an awesome beat-em-up game, and if you've never played the series before, you can pretty much start anywhere you want. There's a ton of games. I just played Knights of Valour 2 because that's my preferred over the original. They added some different mechanics into the game, and I just think it plays a little bit better than the first. But they're all awesome games, and it doesn't matter where you go in, especially because it's in Chinese. So if you don't speak the language, you're really not going to miss much from the story. So it doesn't really matter timeline-wise where you're coming into the game. They're all their own unique experiences. And I just got nailed by that pike right there. There are some cheap hits when you transition stages, but I would say that the game feels quite fair. The bosses really aren't terrible. There's none that are so cheap that you're just going to get juggled and lose an entire life without even putting a hit into them. So I would say that as far as the quarter munchiness of this game is concerned, it is actually quite low. Now that we're into another boss battle here, that guy has a baby in his hand, not sure what's going on there, and you're going to get this giant dude wearing a wolf pelt coming in on a war elephant. I kind of wish the war elephant hung out, he'd be fun to fight, but he is gone. But now you're in a situation where there's two bosses versus one, and you'll see that I do take some hits, but it doesn't feel so unfair as to just feel like it's trying to rip me off from my credit and make me feed more money into the machine. And that's what I do appreciate about these type of beat-em-ups, because there's definitely the ones out there that feel like they're doing nothing more than trying to separate you from your money. Now that one boss is down, we're getting really close to beating the second one. He can be a little difficult because he does have a ranged attack, but if you get in close, you'll see we defeat him perfectly fine, and it's no huge deal. So if you're a fan of beat-em-ups, I definitely recommend this game. I like the setting too, that kind of antiquity, Chinese Oriental vibe going on. It's a really nice look, and it's something that we don't see that much in gaming, so I appreciate that it feels and plays a little bit differently because of that background. And as far as the performance is concerned, there is very little to no slowdown in this game, and you've got a lot of different enemies and sprites on screen all at once. I love these guys here, these kind of like mermen from Castlevania, except they are actually just men jumping in with the same weapon to fight you with their definite speedos on. That's a kind of fun and interesting look. And that banner in the background is so well animated. It's just a fun game. It's lush, it's great to look at, it's great to play, the soundtrack is awesome. It's got everything you want in an arcade beat 'em up if you're a fan of the genre. And I'm assuming more people than not have probably not played this yet, because it's not really a hugely talked about game, and it wasn't on a platform that really got much distribution outside of Asia, so it's not like a Neo Geo SNK game that was probably in arcades in the 90s in an MVS cabinet that you would have seen like Sengoku. But short of that, that's Knights of Valor 2. It's an awesome game. I definitely recommend you go out and play it however you can. If you could do us a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It takes us a lot of time and energy to make each one of these episodes, and we really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I love talking to you guys, and I don't like talking into an echo chamber, so say whatever you want. I'm happy to answer you. Short of that, we'll be back next Sunday with another episode in the Unported Arcade playlist, and we will have episodes on Tuesday in the mainline series and Friday as well. But that's about it. Knights of Valor 2, awesome game, highly recommend it. And if you are an arcade PCB collector, you can get the motherboard and cartridge for this game quite cheaply. Short of that, hope you enjoyed and have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.